Without further ado, I'm going to welcome Dave Cherman on to the stream. Dave, what is happening? Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Nick. How's it going?
Not too bad. I don't like that you're wearing a Colorado Rockies jersey as someone that was a Yankee fan for so long.
And a Yankees hat. I'm just trying to confuse everyone.
All right, you got the hat at least. All right, well, if you don't know Dave Cherman, if you didn't know this, without Dave Cherman, there is no pitcher list. Don't let the title fool you. Dave is much more than just the across-the-scenes manager. He's also an organizer, supporter, and, of course, a booster. He'll also argue with you about virtually anything, has a law degree from Cardozo Law, a former umpire himself. You can find Dave on Twitter at Dave Cherman. Dave, it's great to see you.
It's great to see you too, Nick.
You know, I'm really looking forward to this. Of course, we're going to get an inside look on umpiring. And I don't know what to expect here. I know that there will be some bad language at one point. Dave will warn everybody. Yeah. So if you have any kids present, make sure that they understand what's about to happen.
Yeah,
I know the clip. It's a fantastic clip, so I understand it. But without further ado, Dave, take it away.
Thank you so much, Nick. So I wanted to take this opportunity to go over umpiring and some of the more nuanced rules in baseball. If we take a flashback to this last World Series, it was rife with controversy. Trey Turner running inside the baseline. If we go back to the ALCS, we had a controversial home run. Did the fan interfere with Mookie Betts, or was it a fair ball for the fan to get at? So we're going to go over some of those rules and some of the other things about umpiring that I think some people may not know. So a little background on me. I umpired for 7 years, starting in Little League and up until college ball. And loved it. Couldn't keep doing it as much when I went into college, but it's something I've always followed, and I always try and watch the umpires. Something I learned from umpiring is it's almost a completely different version of baseball. When you play baseball, when you coach baseball, you learn it from one angle, but umpiring is just so completely different, and I hope to take you into some of the reasons why. So what we are going to cover are these 7 topics, starting with umpire movement, why they are where they are. I know a lot of the times we're wondering why umpires are standing where they're standing. I will help out with that. We're going to get into the strike zone and framing and how that works as an umpire. We're going to go into the infield fly rule, interference versus obstruction, and I'm going to go into the different types of each of those rules. We're going to cover some balks. Then we're going to get into some fun ejection videos, and I'm going to talk about what's going on for the umpire in each of these videos. And then we're going to get into the Buster Posey rule, one of the newer rules, and what umpires are looking for. So again, as we're going through each of these rules, I'm going to try and highlight what umpires are looking for on each of these rules. Shout out, by the way, to Justin Paradis for that wonderful cover image. He's fantastic. We couldn't do this without him. So let's go with, let's start with umpire movement, why they are where they are. And on this slide, I want to cover 2 questions. How does an umpire position for play at the plate? And how do they position for steal attempts? So this video is going to help demonstrate the first question. There's some terminology that umpires have, and it's a little bit less so now with the Buster Posey rule, but we have first baseline extended and third baseline extended for where the umpire positions. So imagine you're standing behind home plate, you're looking first base, there's an imaginary line that goes all the way through home plate, through the stands, and same thing with third base. The umpire is going to be standing in one of these 2 spots, depending on what they think the play at the plate is going to be. If they think the ball is going to come into the catcher and the runner coming to the plate is going to slide into the glove and the play is going to be something on that angle, they're going to stand on first baseline extended to see whether the tag hits the runner before the runner gets to home plate. Now, if they think that the The catcher's setting up maybe a little bit on the fair side of home plate, and he is going to be catching it and swinging it around to make a swipe tag. Then he's going to be on the third base line extended in order to see the angle of that play. Something that you're going to hear me say a couple times is angle is the most important thing for umpiring. We have a saying, angle over distance. You can be 2 feet away from a play, but it doesn't matter if you have a bad angle. So let's take a look at this. A lot of you may know this play. This goes back to, I believe, 2007 wild card game between the Rockies and the Padres. So we are in extra innings here. Matt Holliday is on third base, and we are going to have a ball hit into right field. Watch the home plate umpire. We can argue all day about whether or not Matt Holliday was safe or out. For me, he never touched home plate. But if you look at where the umpire is here, he is right on that third base line extended. And you can see, if we back this up a couple frames, he was standing behind home plate, gauging where the play was going to be. And you can see, as we move it forward, he sees that this is going to be a swipe tag. The catcher here is just out in front of home plate. So he swings out to this third base line extended in order to get the angle on that play. We can watch again. Matt Holliday does not touch home plate, but that's neither here nor there. Just a demonstration of why he's standing over there instead of another spot. We don't really see the first baseline extended as much now that we have the Buster Posey rule, and collisions don't really happen as much at home plate. As far as steal attempts, there's some complicated mechanics that go into it when you have 4 umpires, but when we have a runner on first base, the umpire at second base who starts outside the diamond will come in the diamond and will position on one or the other side of the mound in order to see a potential steal attempt. And that's actually up to the individual umpire to determine where they want to be. A lot of them do it based on the arm of the pitcher, standing on the shortstop side for left-handed pitchers or the second base side for right-handed pitchers. Personally, I do it based on the handedness of the batter because I want to get a better angle on the play at second base. So we know if there's a right-handed batter up, the second baseman is going to be more likely to cover a steal at second base. So I want to be on the shortstop side of the bag in order to see that play at a clearer angle, and vice versa. With a lefty up, the shortstop is going to cover second base. So I want to be on the second base side in order to see him from a broader angle. Next, we're going to look at how they position for plays at first base. And when we look at this, we're going to look at one of the more infamous umpire plays of all time. I'm sure all of you know this. Jim Joyce blowing the call at first base. Before we get to that, I want to discuss why umpires go to certain spots. It's about having the best angle for the play. And we talk about trying to have a 90-degree or fewer angle from where the ball is hit. So if a ball is hit towards third base, you're going to see the umpire cutting in almost behind where the first baseman sets up, because that's going to give him the best angle from where the throw is coming in to see that ball and the runner coming up the first base line. When a ball is hit towards the first base side, it gets a little tougher because you can't really get that 90-degree angle. So instead, what you likely see is the umpire cutting just on the inside of first base so that they can see the throw coming to first and they can see the runner coming up the line and try and see which one comes first. So I'm sure all of you know this, but watch Jim Joyce at first. Jim Joyce is standing right near that play. He has a decent angle to see Galarraga stepping on first and Donald stepping on first. Really, this is nothing more that Jim Joyce could have done. He was in the right position because there's nowhere where he could have had a better angle on that play. So, umpires are human. They make mistakes. Jim Joyce made a mistake here, but he really was in the perfect position. Now, had that ball been hit over towards third base, we would have seen him more right in here to see that angle. Yes, I did umpire some junior college and some Division III games a few years back, but mostly high school and a little bit below high school ball. So I understand it's a little bit confusing, but Jim Joyce did nothing wrong on this play except for his decision of what hit the bag first, whether it's Galarraga's foot or it was Armando Galarraga's foot or Jason Donald's foot. And really on these bang bang plays at first, an umpire is not looking at the play. It sounds a little crazy, but your eyes are not really going to help you. It's really your ears. This play a little bit less so because we're looking at both feet hitting the bag. But if you're looking at your typical play where the first baseman has his foot on the bag, looking for the ball coming in and then looking for the foot is not going to help you. So we're listening for the sound of the ball hitting the glove versus the sound of the foot hitting the bag. This play, he used his eyes. He tried to get the best angle he could, and he did. It was just the wrong call. So now I'd like to talk about the strike zone, how umpires develop a strike zone, because I think that's one of the biggest issues that fans have with umpires. They watch an umpire, he calls a pitch that's a couple inches off the plate, say, oh man, he has no idea how to see the strike zone. And really, I'd like to talk about that a little bit because I'm personally very against the robotic strike zone. A lot of people would expect the umpire to stand directly behind the catcher because then you could have a straight-on view of the inside corner and the outside corner. It seems to make a lot of sense. But if you actually position behind the catcher, you cannot see the bottom of the strike zone. You just can't. So what umpires actually do is they stand in what's called the slot. And it's this area right between the batter and the catcher with their front foot is lined up with the back foot of the catcher. And then they have their back foot, their trail foot, lined up with the back of their front foot and then square their body off. So it looks something, you can't see my feet, but they're going to get down in this spot right between the batter and the catcher. And you would think that they wouldn't be able to see a lot because they're on an angle. But really what that does is give you an unimpeded view of the ball as it comes from the pitcher into the catcher. There's nowhere else you can stand where you can see a perfect view of the ball the entire way while still getting an idea of where the ball crosses the plate. So it really is the best spot right there. And I understand what you might be thinking. How can you stand there and see the outside corner of the strike zone? Because you are standing on the inside part of the plate and it's harder to gauge that distance and that outside part of the plate. And you know what? You're right. It is a little bit difficult. And that's why umpires practice and they have to go through so many different levels in order to get to the major leagues. One thing you may not know is umpires have to go to professional school in order to be certified to umpire at the minor leagues. And then umpires have to work their way up from rookie ball all the way to the major leagues in order to become an MLB umpire. So they really have to go through so many different levels. And throughout that process, they are watching game film of themselves every single game. Umpires go home after the game and they watch film just like players do. How well did I see the top of the zone, the inside of the zone? Was I calling breaking balls down and away correctly? So I understand it's very easy to rag on Angel Hernandez, him in particular, and other guys who may not call a perfect strike zone. But these guys are constantly trying to refine their process, and they are putting in work, especially in the off season. Times like this is a great time for an umpire to improve their game and get better at calling things like the outside corner. And catchers can have a lot of impact, especially at lower levels with framing. Trying to pull a ball that's not in the zone into the zone. A good umpire is watching the ball as it comes in, tracking it with his eyes until it hits the glove. And right when it hits the glove, your eyes lock on that spot. And a good umpire will not be fooled by the glove because they saw exactly where it went into the glove, because they have that unimpeded view the whole way into the catcher's glove. Now, some catchers are better than others at framing and making pitches look like a strike when they're not. It's going to happen. Umpires are human. Personally, I see it as a beautiful part of the game if the catcher can really pull a fast one on the umpire. But the more they do it, the more umpires umpire, the more they look at pitches coming into the zone, and the more they review their tape, the less likely they are to actually give calls to catchers, especially when they're working with catchers for a while. I remember I would get used to certain catchers knowing, okay, this guy always tries to pull curveballs at the bottom of the zone. And actually that can come back to hurt a catcher, because I can watch that curveball coming in near the bottom of the zone, and then I know he's pulling it up. So if it's borderline, I'm like, was that actually in the zone, or is he just trying to make me think it? And he might actually lose a strike as a result by trying to frame too much. So it's a give and a take with the umpire. You can't try to get too egregious with the umpire as a catcher, or else you're just going to lose the strike zone entirely, and you're going to lose your relationship with the umpire. There is actually, believe it or not, strong relationships that form between catchers and umpires. I mean, as an umpire, I don't have a glove. I've got some pads. I need that catcher to keep me safe. So umpires often have pretty strong relationships with catchers. If you have any questions about any of these, feel free to throw them in the comments, and I'll happily talk about them at the end. But now I'm going to get to a rule that I see people misapply very often, and it's the infield fly rule. And in doing this, I'm going to cover perhaps the most controversial of the infield fly calls. I'm sure a lot of fans know exactly what video I'm going to show. But before that, I want to get into the rule. So an infield fly is a fair fly ball which can be caught by an infielder with ordinary effort if you have runners on first and second, or first, second, and third before there are two outs. So for this rule, pitchers and catchers count as infielders. So a pop-up to the pitcher counts for infield fly. And then after the out is declared, the ball is live, after the out occurs, which is either when the ball is caught or when it hits the ground, the ball is live and runners may advance at their own risk. So going over those conditions again for an infield fly, we have A, runners on first and second, or first, second, and third. B, there has to be fewer than two outs. C, we have a fair fly ball. And D, that can be caught by an infielder with ordinary effort. So going back to the fair fly ball aspect, if a ball is hit down the line, what you'll actually hear an umpire say is infield fly if fair. So if that ball lands foul, it is not an infield fly, and they're only declaring it an infield fly if the ball lands fair. And you may be asking, how does an umpire distinguish a fly ball versus a high line drive? There can be a little bit of a gray area there. The rule of thumb that I always learned as an umpire is that ball has to be high enough for you to say infield fly, batters out before the apex of the ball, before the apex of the flight of the ball. So if it is not high enough for you to say infield fly, batters out before the apex, it's probably not an infield fly. So let's go to our video. We're going to jump back to 2012 to the NL wildcard game. We are in the bottom of the 8th inning. Cardinals lead 6-3. Braves have runners on first and second with 1 out, trailing by 3. Andrelton Simmons hits this pop-up into short left field. So a lot of controversy there. The Braves actually tried to protest that game. Turns out you cannot protest judgment calls. That's written into the rules. And it is a judgment call, and we're going to get into why in a second. So let's go back to our parameters. We have runners on first and second, or first, second, and third, less than 2 outs, a fair fly ball that can be caught by an infielder with ordinary effort. So clearly we can see from the infographic at the top, runners on first and second, check. Less than 2 outs, check. That ball is hit very high up in the air, and it's clearly in fair territory. Check. So now let's get to the last parameter. It can be caught by an infielder with ordinary effort. So a lot of people assume that an infield fly has to be in the infield. It really doesn't. You could have, theoretically, an infield fly to the warning track. It would be a little ridiculous for a ball to be hit that high, but it is theoretically possible. So now I made a GIF of this play to look, could Pete Kozma, the shortstop, have caught this ball with ordinary effort? And that's the judgment call by the umpire. That's what the Braves could not protest. So we see Kozma, he's jogging out to left. He camps under the ball for at least a second before he thought he was called off by the left fielder, and the ball falls to the ground. In my view, there is no doubt whatsoever Pete Kozma could have caught that ball with ordinary effort. That's an infield fly. Infield fly 10 times out of 10, regardless of where the ball actually lands. Now, again, because that ball is live as soon as it lands, the runners who move up to second and third on this play do so freely. They move at their own risk, but they are safe at second and third. This is just a second out for the Braves. Now, a lot of you now may be asking, but is that what the infield fly rule is really designed for? The infield fly is designed for this situation, first and second, 1 out, a pop-up to Kozma in the infield to stop him from letting the ball fall and then throwing to third and second, getting a quick double play to end the inning. That's really what the rule is designed for, but it's written broadly, and this falls under the category of infield fly. So whether you're a Braves fan, you may not like it and may think that this is on the outer limits of what constitutes an infield fly. It is 100% a valid infield fly. Andrelton Simmons is out. The runners move to second and third safely. Next batter up. So it's unfortunate, but really we have to look at how difficult it is for the shortstop to catch it. Now, if the shortstop sets up on the edge of the infield grass, that ball is probably not catchable by him with ordinary effort. If he sets up on the edge of the outfield grass, he could have an infield fly to where the left fielder is set up. It's really dependent on where those infielders are set up and how easy it is for them to make that play. Next, I'm going to get into interference versus obstruction, the different types of interference and the different types of obstruction. Every single time I see this happen in a game, the announcers always call it wrong. They always call obstruction interference. They call interference obstruction. So I want to give all of you a breakdown on when you see this happen in a game, what the umpires are looking for, and what the rules actually state, and what will happen. So if you're sitting with a group of friends, you can be the rules expert. So we have 2 different types of obstruction, 5 different types of interference, and the rule of thumb, with an exception, the rule of thumb, the offense gets obstructed and the defense gets interfered with. You can think about it, if there was a big roadblock like this one, that's an obstruction in the road. It stops your car from moving, stops the offense from moving forward. That is an obstruction. The only exception to this is catcher's interference. So catcher's interference is when the offense is impeded because the catcher's glove was out too far, batter hits the glove, runner goes to first base. If you have questions about any of the other kinds of interference, I can go through them, but I'm going to highlight mainly runners interference and spectators interference, along with the 2 types of obstruction. So the first is type A obstruction. It happens when a base runner is impeded while the defense is making a play on him. And what happens is the ball is immediately dead and bases are awarded no less than 1 base for the runner who is obstructed. So let's take a look at this play. See if you can see where the obstruction happens. So Torrey Hunter caught in a pickle here, trying to get back to first. And the umpires are going to award him second base. Just like I said, the announcers say, are they calling interference here? No, it's type A obstruction. Type A obstruction. So what happens on this play? Let's go back to it. Torrey Hunter is caught in the rundown. He's trying to go back to first, but he can't actually make it back to first because Adam Dunn is standing in his way, and he's blocking his clear path to first. Now, the fielder has a right to make a play, but Adam Dunn is not making a play there. He's just standing in the running lane. So Torrey Hunter's trying to run back to first. He can't. The umpire immediately calls it dead. That's obstruction. Awards Torrey Hunter second base. Now, it may seem unfair to give him second base because he probably wasn't going to get to second base, but he has to get at least 1 base from the time of the obstruction. Moving on to type B obstruction. I have a video to accompany this. This occurs while the defense is not making a play on the base runner. And when that happens, we have what's called the delayed dead ball. And as you can see, bases are either awarded or not. They don't have to be. And I will explain why after we watch this video of type B obstruction. Red Sox fans may still be upset about this one. Game 3, sorry, I wrote game 2. Game 3 of the 2013 World Series. What did I say? They always say interference. I'm sorry the audio is not coming through. I had every intention of it coming through. That may throw a wrench in the ejection videos I'm showing later. And Rinaldi, I will come back to your question later. So in this video, what you can see is the Red Sox made a play at the plate and then threw down to third base to try and get Will Middlebrooks, to get Alan Craig. The ball goes past Will Middlebrooks, and Craig trips over Will Middlebrooks, and you can see his feet are up right here. That's what Alan Craig trips over. So Alan Craig trips over Will Middlebrooks, and if you watch the third base umpire, who's actually, fun fact, that's Jim Joyce. You can see him signal. He puts his arm out to signal obstruction on the play. And the play is not dead. It's not dead. The umpires have to wait and see what happens. And once the play ends, that's when they are going to deal with the obstruction. So unfortunately, the game actually ended on this call. And as an umpire, you hate to see a game, especially a World Series game, end on such a call. But I'm going to go into why that was the correct call. So again, the runner is impeded while the defense is not making a play on him. And that's exactly what happened. Alan Craig was trying to run home, and he was impeded by Will Middlebrooks at third base while there was no play being made on him. So what does the delayed dead ball mean? It means as soon as play stops, the umpires call it dead, and they will enforce the obstruction. So what does it mean then that bases are either awarded or not? So when the obstruction occurs, the umpires take a look at the situation and they ask themselves, Alan Craig was on third base. Where would he have made it had the obstruction not occurred? Where would he have made it had the obstruction not occurred? And they protect the runner in their mind to that base. Now, in this situation, there's only one base, so they have to protect them at least one base to home plate. And Alan Craig was going to score on that play. But imagine we have a situation, guy hits a ball into the right center field gap. He's taking a big round first base, and the first baseman is not watching the runner, and he's standing on first base. And the runner trips on the first baseman, goes to the ground, gets back up to keep going. The umpire at that moment, when they see the obstruction, is going to give a signal for obstruction. They're going to hold their arm out, and they're going to, in their mind, ask, where would this runner have gotten had he not been obstructed? And in my mind, I might say he was going to get a double. He was going to get to second base. But he keeps going. He gets up and he's gunning it around second, and he's trying to get to third, and he's thrown out at third by a mile. He's out. The obstruction does not matter on that play anymore. The runner tried to proceed past where I, as the umpire, had protected him. He does so at his own risk, and a lot of coaches will get very upset because they don't understand. They think, oh, he was obstructed. No matter what, he's safe. No, that is not the case. And he can be out if he goes past where you as the umpire have protected him. So again, that's how we either award bases or we don't. We may not have to if the runner goes past where we had protected him. All other runners, the ones who are not obstructed, are placed wherever the umpire needs to place them in order for, in their judgment, to nullify the obstruction or the effect of the obstruction. So if the other runners, in their opinion, would have scored, the umpire can score all of them and just deal with the obstructed runner. I know it's a little confusing, but feel free to ask any questions at the end. And now we're going to go to the hot topic from the most recent World Series, running inside the baseline. So we're going to look at the letter of the law first, then we're going to watch the play, and then we're going to go into how the rule is actually interpreted within the context of the play. So if we look at Rule 5.09A11, when running in the last half of the distance between home to first, so the last 45 feet, while the ball is being fielded to first base, not necessarily by the first baseman, but the making a play at first base, the player runs outside, inside the baseline. It's almost always inside for purposes of this rule. And in the umpire's judgment, in doing so, interferes with the fielder taking the throw at first base. So let's watch the play now with that in mind, and then we'll discuss how it's actually interpreted. So here we can see Trey Turner at the plate, hits this grounder. He's running inside the baseline, and he runs right into Yuli Gurriel's glove. All the runners move up, and Trey Turner is called out for interference. Based on what we just read, seems like a very easy decision. It was in the last half of the last 45 feet to first base. He was running inside the baseline, and he ran into Yuli Gurriel's glove. That interferes with the play being fielded at first base. So if we go through our parameters, last half of the distance, check. Ball's being fielded to first base, check. But what does it actually mean to interfere with the fielder taking the throw to first base? Is this actually interference by Trey Turner? Did he actually interfere? So I'm going to show you a couple other plays to demonstrate how this rule has been applied. It's been applied very loosely because the umpire has the discretion to determine whether or not the play was in fact interfered with. And there's a lot that actually goes into determining what is interference. So there's a couple things we look at. Like, what's the intention of the rule? The intention of the rule is for the catcher to be able to have a clear throwing lane to first base. It's not quite the same here because we're looking at the third baseman making the throw to first, but we also have a couple of criteria that we look at. For example, was it just incidental contact? Did the defender stray into the runner's area? Here, Yuli Gurriel reached across first base into where Trey Turner was running. Another hitch in this, Trey Turner is allowed to be there the last 3 feet before hitting first base. So if the defender reaches over into first base or into the running lane, that might just be incidental contact. Could the defender have done anything to avoid the contact there? Yeah, Yuli Gurriel was standing with his glove hand on the bag. He's a righty, so his glove hand is his left hand, glove foot is his left foot. Had he extended with his right foot reaching forward, it might have been possible for him to make a play by doing that. These are all factors that we look at. Here are a couple examples throughout history. 2016, Dellin Betances fields this ball, throws it over the head of Carlos Correa. Joe Girardi argues he had to make that throw. He didn't want to hit Carlos Correa in the back. The simple fact is the interference is on the first baseman's ability to get the ball, not the fielder making the throw. So there can't be interference for him throwing over the runner's head because the first baseman just had to field a bad throw at that point. So you'd say, okay, let's hit him in the back. Because Joe Girardi was actually told here, had they hit Carlos Correa in the back, it would have been interference. So on this play, another Yankee play from the ALCS in 1998, ball hits the runner square in the back. That should be interference, right? Well, the umpire said no, because at that point, he is allowed to be where he is. He's allowed to cross over in order to touch first base safely. So really, it just comes down to the umpire's discretion. It's really a vague rule. that is never going to be interpreted properly, especially when runners, right-handed batters, have to cross over into foul territory in order to run safely. It's just very weird to have them run all the way out and then run in and then run back. The rule needs to be looked at, but that's the state of the rule now. Fan interference. We're going to look at this play real quick. From the ALCS, you'll probably remember Mookie Betts goes up in right field. So we have Jose Altuve here, hits a ball into right field. Mookie Betts is going to go up to try and make a play on it, and the fan is going to hit his glove. So let's fast forward to a replay, and right there, that's where the frame we're really looking at. If you were watching this and you remember, the perfect angle of it has actually been blocked by a camera or a fan standing in front of the camera. But what the umpires are looking for are two things here. Did the spectator clearly prevent the fielder from catching the ball? Here, the guy pushed Mookie Betts' glove closed. That's just plain and simple. That's interference, except it is not fan interference if the player reaches over the fence. That's why we really needed that shot down the line that the fan interfered with. Here, we can't really see if Mookie Betts is leaning over the wall, because if he's leaning over the wall, it is no longer interference at that point. See, we're starting to run a little short on time, so we're going to go quick through some fun balks. What did Kenley Jansen do wrong on this play? Well, you can see Kenley Jansen never actually comes set here. Very easy balk to call. You got to come set. Drew Hutchinson on the mound for the Blue Jays. He doesn't step off the mound here, fakes a throw to first base. You can't fake a throw to first base. That's balk. Runners move up. Here is just bad luck. Trying to make a pitch, drops the ball. You can't drop the ball while you're on the rubber. That's a balk. Here we have another Orioles balk. Manny Machado is not guarding third base. You have to throw to a runner who is legally, or a fielder who is legally guarding the base. Machado's not doing that, so that's a balk, and the Yankees actually went up 3-1 on this play. Here, seems like a fancy pickoff move, a jerky motion, but what happens here is the guy never steps towards first base. You have to step towards the base you're making a pickoff move towards in order to diminish your level of deceit of the runner. So he doesn't make that step towards first until his back leg comes through. That's a balk. Here is my absolute favorite one. Hyunjin Ryu starts his motion and then just stops. Takes the step back in his delivery and just stops. I don't know what he has to argue. That's a balk 10 times out of 10. Here are some common balks that I went over. Don't come to a complete stop. Drop the ball while on the rubber. Fake a throw to third with runners on first and third. You can't do that. I wanted to show this video, but you guys aren't getting audio, and this one doesn't have closed captions.
Hey, Dave, I got you. I'm gonna play it on my phone.
Awesome.
I think I got it. I think is it the one that's 2 minutes and 3 seconds?
Yeah.
All right. So we'll just pause it.
Okay.
And I'll play it. Yeah, go right now.
Ready?
Go.
Okay, so you remember the lead up to this play. Chase Utley had broken Ruben Tejada's leg. This was the first time the Mets and Dodgers played after that. Syndergaard throws at Chase Utley. The first thing the umpire has to do there is throw out Noah Syndergaard.
Not
It's a dangerous situation.
I was going to say that, but that ain't going to happen. I mean, that's the wrong time to do it. That's all.
Syndergaard tries to say he was just throwing a fastball. It's not going to happen.
It is what it is, but that ain't going to happen. Our ass is in the jackpot. We don't do something there. I'm just telling you that.
But shouldn't there be a warning?
No. I mean, okay, the situation of what happened and everything else, that's what dictates that. Okay.
But there was no prior knowledge that before the game started. I mean, if Harry comes into the dugout and says, "Hey, if somebody gets hit," then
everybody knows what the situation is. Okay.
So we watch here. I'll elaborate on all of this after the video. Just want to give you a chance to watch it.
Terry, get a handle. Come on, let's go. Come on, talk to me. Talk to me.
Tommy, that's fucking bullshit.
All right, Nick, you can pause the audio, Nick. This is really all that we need to see. So if we go back, the first thing that happened, the plate umpire tosses out Noah Syndergaard. So everyone on the Mets, Noah Syndergaard, the person he is maddest at is that home plate umpire. So Tom Halley and the crew chief, what he does is he immediately gets in the middle of Noah Syndergaard and the home plate umpire, immediately deflects him from the person he is most mad at and tries to talk to him. Now, Neil Walker actually made an interesting point that they hadn't been warned, but really it doesn't matter. If the umpires don't handle that, then there could be a benches clearing brawl. You need to avoid that. So he's trying to explain everything to Noah Syndergaard until Terry Collins eventually makes his way to the home plate umpire. What you don't see here is the first base umpire heads off Terry Collins until Terry Collins gets to the home plate umpire, who he is most mad at. And at that point, Tom Halley and the crew chief leaves Noah Syndergaard. He tells the first base umpire, take him, meaning take Noah Syndergaard, get him out of the game, and he goes to talk to Terry Collins. And if you notice, Terry Collins is still yelling at the home plate umpire, and Hallian goes, no, talk to me, because he knows Terry Collins is not mad at him. He's mad at the home plate umpire. He's mad at the situation. But this second base umpire, Tom Hallian, he didn't do anything really. He's standing by his umpires, but by separating Terry Collins from the home plate umpire, he's able to maintain control over the situation. I wrote a longer article on this video for Pitcher List. Feel free to go back and check it out. We're going to go to another one that has closed captions. Again, strong language. I'm actually going to go to this one because we're short on time. So this is actually a John Boy breakdown that has captions. Cody Bellinger is batting, and he's going to take a couple pitches here. First, that one is off the plate. Umpire calls it a strike, and Dave Roberts comes out and yells. This is one of my biggest issues as an umpire. A ball is a little bit off the plate. Yeah, it's off. If you have to slow it down that much, I don't think anyone can really object. But if you're in the dugout, you cannot see inside and outside. You just can't. Dave Roberts has nothing to argue because he can't see that pitch. North and south, I'll give it to him all day. East and west, as a manager, as a player in the dugout, you just can't see that. I laugh whenever someone in the dugout tries to argue inside outside. So there were two pitches that Bellinger didn't like. Bellinger's not happy about it. He took strike three right down the middle. Inning is over on a double play here. Bellinger's arguing. He gets tossed. And really, he has to. As an umpire, you can tolerate a lot of people cursing. What you can't tolerate is them cursing at you or cursing about you. And later, we're going to see Bellinger say that he's effing brutal. And it's just rough. I have a lot of issues with players arguing things that they just can't see as well as they think they can. That's a big one. I don't know that we have time for the Buster Posey rule. We can watch this real quick. This is after the rule is instituted. We have Anthony Rizzo coming to home, trying to score, and he just lays out Austin Hedges. He tried to claim he actually slid. but we saw that he actually deviated from his path. Austin Hedges left him so much room to slide, and he just chose to ignore that and collide into him. Even if he weren't out on the play, he is out for Rule 7.13. Going to some quick things, and then I'll get to these comments. For a guy to be called out overrunning first base, he has to make a definitive move towards second base before he can be tagged out coming back to first. Check swings are a judgment call, swing or no swing. Breaking the wrist, crossing the plane are just indicators. They're not actually written into the rule book. And then hit by pitch. I'm still salty about this because I had Max Scherzer in fantasy. He lost the perfect game when Jose Tabata did not get out of the way. You have to make some kind of move to get out of the way of the pitch. Otherwise, the umpire can call the pitch as it would have been had it not hit the batter. Unless it would have been ball 4, he can go to first. That's Rule 5.05B. So I know we wrap things up a little bit quickly. I'd like to get to these questions. Rinaldi, you had one earlier. What do you think about umpires having a mid-game review where someone tells them you keep calling strikes or balls off the plate? I mean, umpires can discuss like that, but it's really up to the home plate umpire. He's the only one who calls the strike zone, and he doesn't really have to change anything.
All right, Dave, I'm going to jump in right now. That was a fantastic presentation. That was really cool to just break down all of these calls. Mm-hmm. And a lot of controversial ones. I think the one that really surprised me the most was the infield fly rule. How you really articulated that was the correct call, which I don't think a lot of people expected you to say. Mm-hmm. But you're right. The infielder comfortably could have caught that ball and was in position to do so until he wasn't at the end. And that is the reason for the infield fly. So mm-hmm. Excellent talk overall. I guess I have one question mm-hmm. That I would love to hear is, what was the most controversial call that you personally have made?
I actually had to throw out a coach in a Little League game because his in this Little League game, they had a rule where you cannot tackle the catcher. This is before the Buster Posey rule. Sure. You have to slide into home. Yeah. And he dove head first into home, and I called him out, and the umpire came out and threw his hat, and he was jamming his finger into me. This is 9-year-olds playing.
Yeah, this is a manager, just a dad. I assume,
and I had to throw him out. And it was something where one of the other umpires, after their game finished, came over, watched, heard what happened, and the three of us walked to my car together because he was waiting in the parking lot to yell at me more.
Man, well, that's ridiculous. I think this is a perfect transition too, as we do have a pitching ninja coming on.
If I can just
of course,
real quick to Rinaldi, real quick.
Yes.
I know you may think you can see the angle, but that angle is just so bad. You can get 10 feet away from the batter's box, and with that angle, you just can't see inside and outside. Sure. I'm telling you, just watch pitches from that angle versus the side. You really can't see it as well as you think.
I'll definitely speak to that. The one thing I think a lot of managers do talk about is a catcher moving the glove. They can see that they set up outside, and then they can see that they move the glove farther away.
But they may not be able to see how far outside they think it was.
And very likely, Dave Roberts in that situation was yelling from the dugout only to protect Bellinger.
That's fair.
Didn't want him to be ejected and wanted to focus on him as opposed to his player.
That's fair. But I'm very excited to see you guys present right now.
Well, less of that, more of Dave. That was a fantastic presentation. I'm really happy that we got to do that. We have this really good explanation of umpiring. Yes, I would have also loved to have heard him say lawyered after every single correct call. That would have been fantastic. Good call there at JT, the Ginger. But anyway, thanks a lot, Dave, for being a part of PitchCon. This was really great.
Feel free to tweet at me with any other questions about umpiring.
Of course, at Dave Cherman. All right. Take care. All right. So